call the official portion of the meeting to order. We do have a quorum present. I ask for approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Thank you very much.
Everybody. Motion made and second. All in favor? Carried. Treasurer's report. Treasurer's report was handed out to everybody. Any questions on the treasurer's report? Move to accept the treasurer's report.
Second.
Motion made by Ron, second by Bill, to accept the treasurer's report. Any other discussion? All in favor? Carried. Enforcement notifications, I have one. Suspended for 1 year, 2 months, deemed to have served concurrently with his period in restricted status with his employer. The remaining 10 months are stayed pending no further violations for 3 years. Zip, Edrington. He's assessed a civil penalty of $2,000, $1,500 shall be suspended pending no further violations for 3 years for violation of 10 New York CRR Part 880.16A13. He's from the Bronx, EMT number 168767. Okay, old business. We have, as discussed last time, the AEMTCC. Like I said in the unofficial report, I probably got about close to 16 letters from different members of Allegheny County in support of the CC program, and also letters sent from Kathy Young's office. Is there any discussion?
We happen to have a member of the CC tag who's a member of this group. I think maybe we could turn letters over to her to share with the tag.
Basically, we had a webinar and discussed a lot of the statistical data of what's going on in the CC program for the past 10 years in the state. So we would have kind of a background information. And as they said, everything's on the table, whether it's an update of the curricula, if it's that the CC will no longer have originals, that there will be bridge courses with paramedic, and no decisions have been made at this time. It's still under discussion. So more information is available, and decisions are made and shared. Everybody has anything they want to hear about the year. I shared that with Allegheny County, so I pretty much heard what they had to say. So everybody else has anything to bring that information forward.
Mickey, I would just share the concern as a course sponsor and an educator. I'd like, if they continue with the curriculum, I'd like to see a curriculum that can be taught in a book that's not the paramedic book, because it's difficult to only teach to a certain level in a text and stop and not answer questions. I don't think that's an appropriate way to deal with the students, and I think it's a concern.
I guess the thing that bothers me about this whole thing is the fact that the state health department has been saying right along that we're not considering the CCs. Nothing's going to change. Apparently, there's been discussions behind closed doors about the very opposite of what the state's official position has been.
This tag was put together at the recommendation of medical standards as well as education and training. The problem with the curriculum, it's old. It's not up to date. It's a problem. So education and training has that piece that we're concerned about, and standards wanted it reviewed, and that's why this tag got put together. And it was at the open meeting in May that this all came up and was established.
My views are well known, and I'm not going to re-argue here, but it just, like I say, it vexes me that we've been being fed the official line for a long time, and apparently this is going to work for some time.
Like I said, that it came up at the May meeting And that was the first open discussion and the tags were formed.
There was a memo in 2012 where they say that they're working towards national standards, and that's what is the national standards, and the CC is not there.
But the health department's position
That
is,
was the health department's memo.
I mean, point blank asked the question, the health department's response is, I have no plan to get rid of it. So I guess that is the official position that is of Lee Burns.
Our payroll director has historically consistently said that, our state is a level of certification in the state, and no plans to change that. Now, keep in mind, the CMAC and SWREMSCO, and, I mean, there's Bureau of EMS is technically, separated from that. There's obviously a direct correlation in a lot of regards. Certainly there are committees and subcommittees and people that are, represented all across the state, and on the state council, and certainly on the SWREMSCO, et cetera. But, there's no doubt that Lee Burns has said that historically. So, I think that she's also said that the curriculum is quite outdated, and certainly is like, and the other component is from, as Amy said, let the tag, do it work. We've got regional representation, and I think that the concerns of a lot of the rural areas have been, these are heard by the state, there's the issue about that, and different people have certain different views upon this. So we just have to read. Andy Johnson has indicated that he anticipates, say May or March, he said March, let me correct him, he said March of 17, anticipates the tag being completed at that time. So, I think that the voices have been heard, and that there is appropriate regional representation all across the state in the areas that are prepared to show. So, that'd be my stance.
And just to add what Ed just said, those, the recommendations came from the Standards Committee of Education and Training, and not from the department. The department is implementing the requests of those committees with that group together. So, Lee said is their statement.
So I think that, I understand the frustration. I think that, and Ed, you and I have talked about this, that the Bureau of EMS has said for a long time, nothing's going to change, we have no plans. And then all of a sudden, at the last state council meeting, they said, well, everything's on the table, including getting rid of the 6Cs. And I think that has caused a lot of frustration from the Department of Health and the Bureau of EMS. So I think that that's one issue. I think, Dan, when you say, you get frustrated by behind closed door meetings, and I made that statement in the REMAC, and for anybody who hasn't seen the REMAC meeting, the video, I would encourage you to listen to it and watch it. I think it was a very good discussion and a good synopsis of the whole history of this discussion from the REMAC level and everything. All of us represent different EMS agencies in some capacity, and I think that any of us in leadership positions know that before something gets made public, before you roll out a new policy, you have discussions with your administrative team, with your leadership, hashing out things, working out the details. And some of us are involved in some of those discussions. There's nothing that's mean-spirited or malicious or anything like that, but being a member of the Medical Standards Committee and the CMAC, I happen to be involved with other positions across the state in some of those discussions. So when I say that I think these things are going to happen, that is my opinion based on these discussions. And I think that the limitation of new original critical care courses in New York State, I think is going to happen. I think it's going to happen quickly. I think that given the financial state of the state of New York State, of the Bureau's budget, staffing, things like that, I think it would be very difficult for them to revise and redo a curriculum that is so outdated. And as I said in the REMAC meeting, and Lee Burns herself made this point, if you don't know, the critical care curriculum is so outdated, and I forget how many years it's been outdated, but there are now skills in the BLS, that are BLS standards of care, including like glucometry, which are not actually in the critical care curriculum. So that's a big issue, and it's an issue that if we're teaching to that and we're training people to that standard, I think there's some implications for our level of response to the public. I know that we have notoriously for years taught above and beyond the CC curriculum or CC courses here, and all three counties offer the courses. But I think that, there is a clear national standard. That national standard is set by the National Curriculum Guidelines, which the state has said that they were going to endorse. Beyond that, the REMAC has already taken the position, although we're having this discussion here now, this discussion has been, had at the REMAC and actually been voted on several years ago. And I will refer anybody, because I don't want to take up a whole lot of time here, but I'll address any questions. If you haven't seen the latest REMAC video, you should watch it for the synopsis, because I think it was a good discussion. But I'm going to just read a couple quick excerpts here. And this was on, as far back as January 16th of 2013, so over 3 years ago, was a motion made to support the national standards level of care for the Western New York region without a timeline for implementation. It was tabled at that time and then voted again on in June 19th, 2013. And actually the motion was made to have course sponsors notify their students of the status of the CC programs prior to them enrolling, so they are aware of the CC level, where the CC level may not exist in the future in the region. So that was made and put on the record so that anyone from 2013 to now that's taken a critical care course should have been notified by their course sponsor. If they weren't, then again, I think that that's an issue. But lastly, I'm going to just read this memo that came out, and this was on June 17, 2013, from the REMAC. And it says, the REMAC is committed to advancing the standard of EMS care in the region and improving access to higher levels of care. It is the intention of the REMAC to align with the national standards of EMS levels of care, including the regional advancement of the AEMT level and promotion of the paramedic level. In order to facilitate this transition, the REMAC recognizes that access to quality EMS education needs to be an ongoing priority. After studying the issues and hearing from stakeholders, the REMAC has determined it would be inappropriate to begin to transition out the AEMT critical care level of care until regional AEMT protocols are adopted and the process and resources are in place to provide sufficient AEMT and paramedic education in the area. In the future, the REMAC will create a timeline for this transition of current EMT-CCs to one of the nationally recognized levels of care and away from continued training of EMT-CCs once these processes are in place. Again, this is in 2013. In order to meet these objectives, the REMAC supports efforts to streamline opportunities for the transition of EMT-CCs to the paramedic level of care, the implementation of a positive educational agenda for the promotion of both AEMT and paramedic programs, increased access to paramedic training programs across the region, and emphasizes the importance of training new candidates to perform at the highest level of EMS care for our region. The REMAC has formed ad hoc committees for the purposes of studying these issues further. The REMAC requests that the regional councils and program agencies work collaboratively to support EMT and paramedic education and report back to the REMAC on an ongoing basis regarding any potential obstacles or opportunities for the REMAC to support its constituents in having quality access, improving access to quality EMS education. So that was June 17th of 2013 that this came out. I mean, these things have already been discussed, regardless of what happens at the state council, although I think it will affect what direction the REMAC heads in the future. This is something that we've already discussed and voted on. And I don't think there is any intent to want to move backwards in that regard. And I guess my only suggestion is that as we go forward with things that we discuss at our county councils, our regional councils, state councils, this meeting, at the REMAC level, we need to get that disseminate that information back to the providers, to the agencies, and to everyone involved. I think there are a lot of concerns about, ALS care in the area that are legitimate, and things that we need to work on and leverage together to ensure that we have appropriate ALS responses in certain areas. But I think that we also need to be proactive in moving forward and ensuring that we are meeting the standard of care that's established nationally right now, and also make sure that we are poising ourselves well to meet those demands and those needs in the future as well.
That's the only, obviously Allegheny County wants to support critical care education as well. But the concern that I have is after the REMAC meeting, I got everyone together and we had a discussion about the paramedic program in Allegheny County. Here we can figure if everything falls into place, the first class we could have for paramedic education in Allegheny County would be 2019. So that would graduate or test out in 2020. So I'm just concerned that all roadblocks down and full speed ahead with the great group of people that met and we got things, I think, well underway, we're still talking 2020 before we can put one single paramedic out there in the county through distance learning. I think that it's only fair to know that we're talking 2020 is the soonest we can take someone from a seat in Allegheny County and make them fair.
I think that's a very valid concern. I think that that's why this was raised back in 2013. I think the intent of that notice and the discussion with the REMAC at that time were to ensure that we were moving forward to develop access to paramedic education so we weren't in a bind or in a position like this. And I mean, some places have done that, some places have not. And I think now we're at a point where we're somewhat behind the eight ball. My concern going forward is, especially if the state takes action, which I think they will, we don't want to be further behind the eight ball. And I think one of the other physicians at the REMAC meeting made the point the worst thing to do is to do nothing right now. And so I think having those discussions that you've been having is exactly what we need to do and to keep moving forward regardless of what does or doesn't happen in the next, while this critical care tag is meeting. If we know that we're not going to have something in place for a couple of years, then we need to be moving full steam ahead to get it as soon as possible and not delaying that 6 months or a year down the road until some ruling comes out from the state or from the REMAC taking further action to that end. But I think that is something we need to be aware of.
I'd just like to throw this out there, that there is no prohibition on anyone coming to the DL classes that are presently held in Jamestown or Fulton. So,
Other than travel time.
exactly, but any student
That's
can
the
enroll.
same problem that's been since the very inception of the program.
And just to point out, I mean, I think that sometimes we think that because we're in the southern tier, we're disadvantaged or things like that, but let's not forget that if you're in Erie or Niagara County, the closest paramedic program is BCC South, which is, for a lot of people, a 45-minute drive in the winter and the snow too. So this is not just a unique situation here, but they are real concerns, and I think we need to continue moving forward the way that we are.
Just to clarify with the paramedic program, the scheduled class for 2017, there's no way that the hurdles could be met in time for that. It would be anticipated that there would be a break following this current class, and that's why the next class will start in 2019. If there was a large enough need, classes can be applied for, but the reality is it probably won't be till, somewhere in 2019 where we start that next class, and it's a matter of, enrollment.
I
So.
think the other thing too, though, is for us as a region, we need to push for the bridge funds. And maybe we can, you got one in 17, maybe we can start to look at, is there a bridge class, can we do it in 18?
Yeah, I'm in
Just for the
support of
folks
the
that are-
tag, considering what can they do to build a bridge class. Let's understand that bridge class is going to have to identify all the shortages that are not there in the current critical care to paramedic, and it'll be a unique program, so that it shouldn't be something that continues more than a year or two to allow people to get caught up and move forward. The other thing I think we should recognize is that none of this has to do currently with the ability of the critical care provider in the area. I wouldn't want any critical care provider to look at themselves and say, oh, they don't think I'm good enough, or that's not what's going on here. This is about the curriculum, this is about bringing up the national standards, and that's what we're talking about. But the hurdles in Allegheny County exist. We just need to try to start meeting what we can so that we're prepared. There's always a number of paths that can be taken, and we should be prepared for whatever direction we need to go. And I support Allegheny County still saying, hey, what we have here works for us, but I also understand the state saying, hey, that curriculum needs to be brought into date because it's not right. And it's
And I think to your point there, I think that's one of the reasons that if the state does come out, Mickey, and say, we are going to change, we're not going to allow any for the original critical care courses and providers, I think that's one of the reasons that we want to ensure that, I don't know what they're going to do with the existing critical care providers, other than I think there will be a bridge course. I don't know if they'll be allowed to continue practicing forever, or if there will be a phase-out period, and I would hope that it would be some type of, extended type, program, so that we don't limit the existing ALS providers, especially in Allegheny County, to deliver care to the community.
And all of those things are open for discussion, and I don't think there's any hard and fast timeline attached to anything, because that discussion hasn't gone to the end yet.
Was there not a bridge course approved by the state a few years ago? I couldn't pull
There
it
has
up.
never been a bridge course. There's
Some
an
kind of
advanced
prohibited
stage.
from using
State is like a
There is advanced standing process.
Okay, but there was never an actual bridge.
Nope.
No, there was not.
So, Mickey, the one thing that I would like you to bring to the head, and I think I speak for everyone here, is the cost of education. Cost of funding has to be discussed at this tech, because that is the 800-pound gorilla.
And as Jeff brought forward, all the ALS courses are only if there's like the ALS courses. That could stop tomorrow across the state. That's it. So, just so everybody knows that.
I just had a couple things. I agree with Dr. Walters with that revamp took advance on this. I know part of the concern, I didn't call myself a revamp, but this came here, it seemed to have a fair amount of pushback. At the time it was discussed back in 2013. I understand about going forward. At that same time, we took in the idea of improving the paramedic program down in the county. The biggest thing I told Phil, I can't put 10 people around the county. Don't think I can put 10 people in place. So that was a hurdle for us. We did go ahead and get some equipment that I knew I could utilize. It was another good spot. We did get some communication equipment to utilize for that. Jones Ford, I'll put some advancements in. We have had about 5 people go through your paramedic program from Allegheny County. I think we've got about 5 go through your paramedic program in Allegheny County. I think there's a couple more that are signed up to take it starting in January. Again, so we are moving forward in that direction. So at that same time, I was also worried about ALS instructors. I only had one ALS instructor in the county. I went a period of time without any ALS instructor, then I went through a period with an instructor. And by Erie County, I couldn't get anybody from Cattaraugus to ALS, their own concerns. So right now, we only have one ALS instructor in county. Again, I mentioned before about understand Phil in the program, and I'm not going to just throw it on Phil, but the program, stuff, paramedic program needs to keep it. We only have 5-7 students. We're dragging down the rest of the program because we need about 10. Again, so that's a concern going forward, and that doesn't get into either money going out. That's just the number of people that have to be in the classroom. I know there's some discussion about maybe bring some of Erie County in that other form of help in that regards too. But again, I don't see that many people signing up.